people.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Facebook Live broadcast. I'm Paula Nowak with Canine Country Academy. I will be your host and your moderator tonight. And we have with us Nancy Reyes from Foyer Canine. Hey, Nancy.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
And she's up in Chicago. She said it was raining there today. We had beautiful weather here in Georgia, so we'll rub it in just a little bit.
Oh.
But tonight we're going to talk about an awesome topic that can just cover so many things. And it's a question. What is mental management? And if you've never heard of mental management, man, you're going to learn a ton of stuff. If you've experienced any form of mental management in training, then you are going to gain even more information. And before I forget, and I know I'll do it at the end as well, but Nancy's actually coming here live in March to talk about this topic and help you guys with your dogs in the realm of nosework. So, Nancy, what in the world is mental management?
Well, mental management's been around for a long, long time, mostly used in the human sports side. Quite a few years ago, I would say close to 15 or so years ago, it came into the dog world via agility. Lenny Basham is the developer of this program, mental management. And so we started adapting it in the dog world for agility many years ago. Okay. And so now, as we started in nosework, we see we still need it. So it's still very relevant. So really quick background on mental management. Lenny Basham took the successful shooting. And then he was wondering, like, what happened that he didn't get the gold, and basically he fell to the pressure of the competition. So he set out to figure out how to overcome that and work through that. So he asked all the people that he knew that are gold medalists, and he came up with this wonderful system. And he used it himself in 1976. He went out and did win the gold for rifle shooting at that time. So that's how it came about. Yeah. And the golfing world uses it a lot. And now it's just expanded over lots of different sports with, golf and archery and all those other different sports. So, and then, like I said, it came into the dog world via the agility route quite a few years ago. So.
And it's really amazing. It really can be applied to so many things. You know, we're using it for the dog world, but it's really limitless. You know, I find I use it in everyday life sometimes. It's just good tools that you can apply across the board.
Right. Yes, it's good for sports. It's good for life. It's good for everything. So, and basically what mental management is a program that will allow you to have a consistent mental performance under pressure on demand. So basically, it helps train your brain to be able to handle the pressure of whatever situation you're in. So yes, it's great for everything.
So when you say it is great for everything. When you're doing these things, can you explain kind of the setup? Like, give us an example of how someone might use it, and then how that goes. You talk, really about the conscious and the subconscious. So give us kind of the layout. Sure. If I was going to prepare to use it, and then how it applies inside my body, inside my brain.
Right. Well, the mental management kind of works with the conscious, subconscious, and the self-image. So the conscious mind is what we think about, our daily thoughts, if we're nervous about a trial or whatever, we would start thinking, oh, is my dog going to do this, or is he going to be able to find it? All those different thoughts. Then subconscious are all the skills we have, right? All the training we do, everything we do, it should come easy. For example, a subconscious task would be driving a car. Most of us, when we first learn how to drive a car, we're conscious thinking, okay, put the hand here, do this. And we're very careful about everything we do that when it comes to driving. So those of us that have been driving a while, we don't even think about it anymore. We get in, we just go. And so those skills are now in our subconscious. so that they're available to us all the time. So those are the skills that you're putting into your dog. And for nose work is you're building those skills that you're doing when you go to training every week and all the stuff you're working on. So you're putting those skills in your subconscious so you can draw from them anytime. And then the self-image is what makes you act like you, what makes you do like what you do. So the conscious and the subconscious feed that self-image all the time. And sometimes we're not always aware of it. So that's why it's important that your thoughts are positive and, you're going to win. Because basically the difference, 90% of, the people who win, 5% of the people do 90% of the winning. And that's because they have the right attitude. Instead of, I hope I can do it. I wish I could do it. Instead, they're like, I'm going to do it. I did it. So the attitude is really important, and that's what feeds your self-image. And when you go approach it with confidence and all that, then usually you can, you're unbeatable. And those three, conscious, subconscious, and self-image, need to be in balance to be able to have the optimal performance, right? So
gotcha. Okay.
And one of the things that's a little different with dog sports is we are dealing with another being, right? Another little four-legged being. So you have to take into account that sometimes they're not having a great day, and it's part of being able to handle those situations and be able to handle if you didn't have such a great performance and not belabor it, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, we are also dealing with another being, right? That's not a team. It's not a person. They can't tell us, I'm not feeling it today, or I just don't feel well today, or my stomach is bothering me today. We kind of know, but we're not sure. So sometimes going into the game, we have another four-legged, little companion that we have to consider when we're working on stuff. So
yeah, another team member. And I would love to hear from our audience, to share with us, and I'll show them here in a moment, what sport or activity would you like to apply, mental management? So if you'll share that while we're chatting, that'll help us all.
Agility and nose work, they all have start lines, right? So one of the things is you develop a mental program for your start, right? So you would have, it's a trigger, a physical trigger, and it's a lot more complicated for just this short time, but you would develop a routine, a pre-trial routine that you would do every time in training and at trials, so that it becomes part of your subconscious. And the big thing is what you think about before you start your action, right? What are you thinking about? Are you like, oh my God, I hope he doesn't pee? That's probably something that you want to think about.
Or right? I forgot to use the restroom.
So you wanna usually, I like to think about my dog. I look at her and I'm like, oh, we're gonna have a good time. And that's the last thing I think about before we start doing anything. And for agility too, is having some kind of a routine that you do and run your mental program while you're doing that pre-trial routine. So those are all things that become part of it. But a lot of people do it at trials, but they don't do it in practice, and that's a problem, right? You want to do that in practice too, because then it becomes more part of more of your subconscious.
Right, because the more times you practice it, the more times it's going in, the more times you're successful. Right. So hundreds and hundreds of times.
Right. So for example, if you're going to use it for nose work, I'll tell you what I do for nose work. For at my start line, you want a physical cue. So my physical cue is I change the leash from one leash to her collar, right? So then I change that. I take a look around, take in my environment. I take a deep breath. I have I think I love we're going to have a good time. And we start, and I give her my search cue, and that's how we start every single search. And we do that in training as well as in practice. So it becomes part of it. Now, I was watching some video of some of my trials, and I'm like, wow, I do it all the time now. I don't even think about it. It's just part of what we
remember. Yeah, that you were doing it. Yeah.
Right.
And Nancy, does it start? Do you do those things just at the start line, or are there things we should be doing before we ever get to the start line, like when we're at our car or our base,
sure.
That we've started at?
Yeah. So for example, everybody's different. Some people listen to music, Some people actually listen to music during their walkthrough in agility. That was a big thing for a while, where people
Okay.
would have earphones, they'd do the walkthrough and just focus on what they're doing and visualize it. And so in your car, you could do that, or you can do some visualization and think about, okay, this is how we're going to run it, how it would feel, and kind of take a deep breath. Some people benefit with a little bit of meditation before they go in so that they can calm themselves. I personally like to talk to other people and chat and visit, because that makes me, well, it takes my mind off of things and it just helps me just relax. So whatever works for you. So you can have whatever routine. It's just got to be what works for you. I know a lot of people don't want to go visit, don't want to talk to people when they're trying to right before a trial. Well, for me, that works, and I enjoy that a lot. But for other people, they might just enjoy, sitting in their car, listening to music, or just rehearsing the searches, rehearsing how you're going to feel after you run, and all those kind of things. So it very much varies. Fretting about, oh my God, my dog didn't pee. What just
The
kind of.
search area is huge.
A lot of times it doesn't even matter. Truly, it doesn't even matter. When you're doing it, doesn't really matter. So yeah, but everybody can set up or you can write down. And the big thing is you want to have, be positive and try to, because pressure is not a bad thing. We're not trying to get rid of pressure. Pressure is what makes us do what we do. And
Right.
so you're not getting rid of pressure. You're just being able to work with what you've got and deal with the pressure that's there for you that day. Right.
Right. And definitely with preparing ahead of time, I know this time last year when you were here, you talked about, having your treats in the same place and your leash in the same place, and kind of having this ritual so that you don't get to your car to get your dog for, their search. And you're like, oh my gosh, where's the treat bag? Or I don't know where their harness is that I normally have them wear. And so if you just kind of do the same things over and over again, you don't have to think about it. It's like when you show up at your house and you've, driven from work, you don't even know how you got there. Right?
That's right.
Which is terrifying, but
Right.
your subconscious is taking care of you, which is, I don't know. But it's what you need, right? So let's check in with our audience and see what they are doing and what they need mental management for. So, Kim had said she's using it for nosework, which is very close to both of us, since that's one of our primary sports we do. Jeannie, definitely nosework, agility, also helpful with working or therapy situations as challenges arrive. So she's using it even in her therapy dog prep.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Hannah, definitely confirmation. Our nerves do travel down the leash. Yeah. And so we need to be a good team member and really model what we want from our dog.
Some of the things, sorry to interrupt, but some of the stuff you can do for confirmation, there is a little bit of prep you can do. Before you go in the ring, you want to practice stacking, and maybe you can do, walk her up, and for the dog to help you both relax for confirmation, stuff you might want to consider is doing some tricks beforehand, some, hand touches, weave through the legs, just to kind of relax you and before you go into the ring. You don't want to do too crazy. And then just mentally in the confirmation and in agility, you're walking a course, or you're doing everything the same. So you can do some visualization with those type of sports. Nosework, while you can do it because you do get a walkthrough before, sometimes you may not remember it perfectly well, so it might be tougher. But agility and confirmation, it's always, the course is what it is, and in confirmation, it's the same. It's the going around and all that. So you're able to visualize some, and you can help your dog relax and your dog. I found doing some tricks, and you can have the same tricks before you go into the confirmation ring. Nothing fancy, just a hand touches, maybe a weave through the legs, or anything to help you both relax. And just get more connected with your dog before you go in there. So.
It kind of gives them a heads up. Hey, we're doing this activity.
Right. And I think with Hannah, I think where she's maybe having a little more trouble is confirmation is new to her. So it is not in her subconscious yet. So yes, you're going to be a little bit more nervous because that's not something she does all the time, and it's still not in her wheelhouse. So once she gets more comfortable and she does it more often, I bet you it'll get easier. But right now it's not like, it's like when she first started learning to drive a car is where she is in confirmation right now.
Right. Yeah. Especially if you're learning to drive a stick shift. That's how I had to learn.
Well, she's learning how to drive a Maserati. So it's really hard.
And her dog Maserati.
Her puppy's like a little Maserati, so that might be a little stressful.
Oh, goodness. Oh, my goodness. And, Jenna is saying, staying calm when working a reactive dog, having some mental management there before you maybe take them out and work with them, know what your game plan is.
So the other thing with a reactive dog is, does she know the dog? Because staying calm is important, but you want to stay on your toes when you're working reactive dogs. Otherwise, too calm is not good. We're in that scenario. Being a little bit more aware and on your toes is going to help you stay safe.
Oh, goodness. Oh, and Jeannie, she says, it's better to plan than spiking her coffee. We're going to have to watch her. We're going to have to maybe check in with her before she gets to that.
So, and the other thing, those of you with multiple dogs or that do different sports, you might want to have a pre-trial ritual, a different one for each dog or each sport that you do.
That's a good idea.
Otherwise, it's so that way you can kind of get in that in the right mindset for your particular sport or dog, because a lot of people do have multiple dogs. So
yeah, that's a really good idea. And each dog is different, how you interact with them and how they respond to things. If you always give your dog a kiss on the head or the cheek and the dog you're working is like, ugh, don't do that. It's probably not the best ritual.
Right. And that's another thing. So remember, since we do have another a team partner, you really want to make sure that whatever your ritual is, it's fun for both of you, and that both of you enjoy it. Right.
Right. You're not creating a problem. And Rachel is doing dock diving with her dog. And that's definitely another sport that doesn't come to my mind because I don't do it myself, but you would need mental management for that.
Yes. And I've just started dock diving with my lab, so I totally get that. And for dock diving is one of the things I did learn is what our ritual is. She still doesn't have my dog's still young, so she doesn't have a very good stay yet. Not for that anyway. But so I've kind of got where I figure my ritual is with my toy, right? How I'm going to toss the toy and when I'm going to toss a toy, and that is something that you want to practice away from the dog. The toy toss matters quite a lot in dock diving, so you want to get really very, very skilled with that. And then I like to practice tossing it and take a breath and then toss it, and that seems to help me kind of focus a little bit more on that. And I work those two skills separately, tossing the toy so I get better at it without my dog, and then have her, because there is a skill to throwing that toy and making sure it's going to be where you want it. So trying to manage the dog and that, you want to develop that toss before you add your dog.
Gotcha. That's a really good tip. So hopefully that'll help Rachel. And so Jeannie's got a question. Would you recommend tricks before nosework too to help settle everyone?
Yes, but it depends, right? It depends on your dog. Mm-hmm. And it depends if it's going to amp them up. No. And it depends if your dog needs a little bit more encouraging. But yes, some people do while they're waiting for their start. That is part of the ritual. They do some hand touches, or they do some weaves, or they do a couple of tricks while they're staging, and then they go run their mental program when they get to the start line. So yes, so while you're staging, that would help that would help everyone kind of relax and kind of get the dog in the mode. So.
And some dogs I see, if they are maybe in nose work they enjoy, but they are really good at, doing behaviors you ask. I find with Norby, if I were to do a bunch of tricks and then I try to get to the start line and we're rookies, where Jeannie's dog isn't a rookie, he thinks, oh, we're doing like an obedience or a trick thing. It's harder for him to shift. Where if I did that with Molly, who's more seasoned and nose work as her primary, it doesn't impact her in the least.
Right. And that's what I mean. You have to really see what it does to your dog. Does it amp him up? Does it calm him down? And those are all things you want to do in training.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? You want to develop your mental program in training so that when you and work your performance, and it's hard because in training, most people aren't really nervous, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we slack on that. So, but you got to practice the whole process and see what works for you and for your dog, right? Because some dogs get too aroused when they're working on if you do too much, and other dogs get them more stressed, or other dogs might be confusing depending on what you work on and what you do. So yes,
you got to test it out and see what works.
Right.
And so, Rachel, back to dock diving, was like, yes, toys tend to go, out of the pool if you're too amped up.
Exactly.
Watch your adrenaline levels. Woo!
Exactly right. That's why I practice tossing the toy, because I throw like a girl. So I have to practice. I have to practice that piece, and I try to do it away from my puppy, because you're trying to control her and trying to do a good toss. So you need to take a breath and wait and have your, I see a lot of people go, they hold their dog, they leave their dog, and then they take a couple of breaths and kind of work and throw that toy. But I usually, I needed to work on the toy toss myself, just not, not good at it. So, and that made me
that part of the team.
Yeah, exactly. Let's make that better, shall we? Yes. Right. Well, and it really is. If you're in the beginner stages, running your mental management's hard, because your conscious thoughts, you're really thinking and focusing on what you're doing. So you're still not. You're still trying to figure out how to do it. It's not in your subconscious yet. So you have to have the skills in your subconscious before you start to try to put it all together. If you're still not comfortable, like in Hannah's case, she's starting new with confirmation, you got to get more comfortable doing the skills that go into it before you start trying to run a mental program. So
right. And you can even split yourself up from the dog in that scenario and do all the hand motions and the running, because you have to learn how to pace yourself aside from the dog. And I think dogs really appreciate when we practice our skills away from them.
Yeah, they're always so much better than we are, but yes, agreed.
They're like, you're testing my patience.
Yeah, exactly. Why can't you just run like you're supposed to, or throw the toy like you're supposed to?
Right. You do it good every now and then.
Yeah, so it's really hard. So like tossing the toy was a pretty challenge for me, and I still, because now it's the off season, so I am also trying to do rentals so I can practice tossing the toy so that my dog can get better, right?
Yeah.
Because that is new. I am a beginner in that sport as well. So I'm just, I need to work on the subconscious and build those skills for myself. So
in addition to practicing, Nancy, is there anything else we can do, like, keeping a journal or videotaping ourselves to make sure we're following the same, kind of patterns?
So this brings me to the next thing. When you do have a performance, after your performance, one of the things you want to do is kind of think about your performance. Was it good? Was it great? Was it okay? Does it need work? So you decide that, and then, have a plan and then let it go. See, I think that's the biggest problem with the mental management, is people will bring the bad performance from last time, bring it with them to the next competition. So you're bringing the failures from before, and some of the failures, some people, well, they tell me he peed. Well, how long was that? Well, like 2 years ago. Well,
Oh, jeez.
he hasn't peed in 2 years. I think you're good, right? So, but they're still bringing all that luggage from the first, uh, for the problems they had before. So it's really important that you, and then you can log it. And I would think tracking your progress is really important. He did, this happened. And set up your goals for that particular trial. But you really have to let that go. If you didn't have a great performance or you didn't do well, think about it. Think how you could do better. You can rethink about how you could correct it. For example, in nosework, let's say you did a container search and you missed it by one box. You can go back, think about it, think about them hitting the right box, kind of go with that, and then just let that go, and just let that problem you had, let it go, and come in fresh to the next competition. It's a brand new competition, and in many cases, we're training and we're working and we're doing stuff. So the problems we might have had 6 months ago we're not going to have those problems again this time.
Right.
You're a different team. Your team that you were 6 months ago is not the same team you are today. So when you go into a trial, you have to remember that you're not the same team. You're a different team. You're a better team than you were however long ago. So a lot of people keep dragging those past trials with them, and they take them with them to every single trial.
Well, and it's really important when you say, Nancy, because in nosework specifically, and I can think of some other venues like Rally, you might have a whole weekend, or agility, a whole weekend of trialing, and you go from Friday, you do whatever that was and however that went, and you can't let it go to Saturday and then to Sunday. Or I've even had where you search back to back, you do containers, done, whatever happened there, and you've got to go reset your brain to go into vehicles. Like
Right.
back, you have no time except for that moment to go, okay, I missed that. Next time I need to observe XYZ, reset, go. And, it just, otherwise you can't think about what just happened. It's just going to set you up for failure.
Right. I would take those few moments in between searches, because that's happened to me. Actually, it did happen to me with my little infant. It did happen to me. We didn't fail, but it was a very heart-pounding container search. And
right?
I did take some time before my next search, took a breath, reran that search in my mind. I was happy with the results, and then I was able to go in and do my next search. So I did take and we're only talking a few seconds. It didn't
right. Just to walk to the next.
Right. And it's okay to take a few minutes to just take a breath and shake it off, and then go on to the next one. Because I think a lot of us don't do that, especially in nosework, because you think we got to hurry. So it's okay to just.
It's the one sport you don't have to hurry.
Take your time and do what you need to do. Yes. Agreed.
Absolutely. And I think it's very good for our students and other instructors to hear that, you teach all over the world, and you still get those butterflies and the heart-pounding moments when you're working your dog. Nobody's immune to that. It's just having these tools like mental management to work through those things, because that's just not going to change.
Right. And I'll be honest, I personally do use it. I am able to, one of the things I've really gained from doing the mental management is not bringing our past searches to the new searches. That has been just a revelation for me, to not be able to do that, because I did have that tendency before, but I don't anymore. Whatever happened last trial, good, bad, whatever. Now we're going to this next one, and we'll do what we do. So that's the biggest, and that's what's kind of helped me overcome a lot of the stress and pressure and all that. Just be able to just leave the other search behind. That's what happened before, and that's it. So and we're no longer that team. That was last year. This year we're another team. So.
Especially since you have, like at least three dogs that you're doing different things with, at a time.
Well, and currently I have an elite dog, and I have 2 dogs that are just getting ready to do the ORT. So I'm going, elite's easier because you don't have to be perfect, and the rest you do. So yeah, I've been working on my mental management with my young dogs, and and just kind of looking forward to it, and being much different, a lot more
Yeah.
positive, and a lot more confident and comfortable with the new ones. So even though you have to be perfect, and also is the worst thing that happens is that they don't get their RT. Well,
There's
it's
another one.
there's another one, right?
Yeah.
Instead of letting, because that just overthinking that will just cause you to, because one of the things in the mental management is over trying is the best way that where you're gonna fail if you over try. Over trying is a killer. So you just, because that's what we do, right? If you're having a problem, we over try, and all you have to do is build your skills, relax into it, and just go with it. So over trying is
a perfect segue into Jeannie's question. How do you talk yourself down from that? Letting go is a real struggle. So let's say that you've got your Birch ORT, you're going to do Annis. And Birch was no big deal. You did it, you're doing great in searches, but for whatever reason, a lot of people are struggling with this. The searching white boxes is like wigging dogs and people out. And you've done, your Annis ORT maybe 2 times, maybe a 3rd time, and they're like, man, my dog knows it. My dog will find it in the environment, but for whatever reason, when we get those 12 white boxes, we both just kind of lose our minds. What would you recommend for that?
So, and actually that happened to me in one of my searches. It wasn't an ORT search, it was a container search. I started, remember conscious mind, I started to think about, oh my gosh, we're not going to get it, because she was struggling a little bit in the middle of that search. So what I did was, and I have video, it was amazing. I was very stressed, and my dog was like, wow, you're really freaking me out. So actually in the middle of our search, I just took a breath, and nosework, you can do that. I stopped, stood there for a minute, took deep breath. Okay, let's just do this. Breathing really helps a lot. And the minute I did it, I took a breath, and I said, okay, Chacha, let's find it. And she goes, oh yeah, it's right here. And that was it.
Now that you're breathing again.
Yes, because that's exactly right. You're not breathing, you're all tensed up, and so I use breath a lot in when I compete. Breathing really helps the dog and you to just regroup. So stopping in the middle, because it's only a few seconds. So take a breath, and then said, okay, we're going to do this, and just change your mindset and go. And sometimes you will, once it works a few times, you're going to be like, yeah, this is good. And you'll be able to do it much more simply and easier for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And we as humans don't breathe enough, period.
Well, in nosework especially.
It's amazing there are people passing out.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, you need to do it in practice. Even if you're not nervous, stopping, taking a breath, and so you can practice it, so that when you go to a trial, it's not the first time you're going to try that, right? It's
right, because it can feel very uncomfortable when everyone's watching you to do something like that. Right. When it's clear that maybe you're struggling.
Right. And so, and it happens to everyone. Nobody's immune. And the truth of the matter is, nobody's going to remember it either. That's the other.
You'd be like, that one lady, she took this big breath.
Yeah. And it's like, taking a breath at the start really helps. At least it helps me. I know it doesn't help everyone, but because some people are like, oh, it's hyperventilating. So you got to pick what works for you, right?
Totally. Yeah. And then practice it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll help Jeannie, and the next time she's trying for one of those difficult moments. All right, so we know that mental management can help us with all different kinds of dog sports or human sports or just life. We know we need to practice it so it gets in our subconscious, that it applies to our conscious, our subconscious, and then what we, who we are, what we see as ourself, right? Our self-value. And, writing things down afterwards, after we have a search, and letting it go, sending that baggage along if something doesn't go right. What else do we need to know about mental management?
Well, the other thing I like to use, and I use this a lot for, I'll be honest, I use it a lot for my business life, but also I found it very effective for nose work is fear setting, writing down your fears, what could go wrong, and
Mm.
what could go wrong, right?
Ooh, that could be a long list, Nancy.
Yeah. Well, for that particular search, let's say you mentioned what and what's the worst thing that could happen? Because that's something I think sometimes the fears we have are, it's like, what's the worst that can happen? And in our sports, really nothing can happen. We just don't get a title that day. But it helps us develop, and because there's no winning or losing, it's learning, right? If you don't pass or you learn something, okay, what went wrong, what happened there that we can improve on or make better, right? And so it's really changing on how we look at it's not, a lot of people saying, oh, I'm such a loser, or I didn't do that right, or whatever. No, it just could be especially in certain sports, it could be the time, just a bad time, so writing down your fears, and kind of think, what's the worst that can happen? And then how's that going to impact things? Sometimes it helps, like, okay, it's not that big of a deal if this goes wrong. I use it a lot when I'm trying to make a decision for my business and what I'm going to do, because it's like, well, what's the worst that can happen? And it's like, well, if that's the worst that can happen, then I'm okay with doing that or making that decision or whatever it is. So
right.
sometimes,
and that definitely takes practice too.
Right. And I think a lot of people worry about what other people think at trials and stuff. And the truth is, most people only care about what they're doing and what their dog and their stuff. So I think it's important that you just really focus on what you want to do and your goals and don't worry about what other people think. I know it's easy to say, but you really have to own that. So
right, you have to practice that too.
Right. You have to do that
for sure. And it looks like Jeannie would like some impromptu breathing practice on Friday nights before do Facebook Live, just people breathing.
Just going,
explain what's happening.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because that is, I mean, it really is helpful when you're not breathing. Then you start thinking about all these things that you really should. You also want to control what your thoughts that are coming in your mind, like, oh my God, she's not finding it. Oh, maybe we need to, instead of thinking about that, saying we might need to move this way, right, instead of saying, oh, she's not doing it, because it's all on what we, it's all about what we say, and always remember, what we think about, we bring about. So when you're at a start line and you're like, I hope he doesn't pee, you're thinking about pee, not about finding the hide.
Right. Yeah. Right? Or, thinking about like how you're going to approach that search, right?
Right. Instead of thinking, we're going to find these hides. You're at the start line, we're going to find these hides. Forget about the other stuff. Because you might have peed, like I said, 2 years ago. He hasn't done it since. So what's the problem, right? You've already
There's some people who worry about pee that dogs has never peed in the search area.
Exactly. So yeah, I have that too. So it's one of those things you really have to really be realistic about it. I think the anxiety, the pressure is anxiety and excitement. So sometimes we can get all amped up, like the dock diving question, because we're all excited because it's a very exciting sport, and you can get all amped up. So you have to really learn how to control that arousal for yourself and for your dog. So.
Right, you got to get in that zone. I think about many people in our area are very into college football because we have UGA nearby. But any kind of professional sport, they hopefully when they go into that venue, they're not saying, oh, we're gonna suck, and oh, so and so is never gonna catch the ball and things like that. They they pep them up. They're going to win, they're going to do the right play, and look at, you can tell what teams actually do those things, right? Because they're successful repetitively. And the
Right.
same is true for, us, right?
Right. Well, here's a really I know these are mostly people who are maybe may or may not be sports fans, but here we go. In my house, we're a big sports family. My husband watches sports constantly. So
Amen. Yep, same here. Probably watching him right now as we speak.
As a matter of fact, he is. One of the things that I watch sports with a different eye now because since I'm stuck watching it, I might as well. One of the things I did, and one of the things, if you watch the World Series, there was no doubt that Boston was going to win that World Series. There was no question about it. When those players knew they were going to win before they walked out on the field, there was no question. There was no stress. There was none of that. They knew they were going to get it done, and they did, and they totally did. Even before the series started, I told my husband, Boston's going to win it. He goes, how do you know? I go, I just know. There was no doubt. They believed they were going to win, and they did. And I think that is that's half the battle. Is you believe you can do it. And I'm going to share. When I went for my NW2, I struggled there at that level, and it was because I wasn't putting the training for my dog. Right, I wasn't training her. I was just going out and trying to do the best we could because I could read her well. So we struggled at that level. And so I was nervous or anxious because I knew we didn't probably have the skills to do it. Mm-hmm. So once I finally started putting the time in and working her, yeah, she got it right away. And since, you know what I mean? So the anxiety came from, I knew I didn't have the skills. So right. Sometimes that we didn't as a team. So when that happened, you need to then go back and put those skills in because it's impossible to have a successful mental program and run a mental game if you know that your skills aren't up to par. They're not where they're supposed to be.
Right. And with with the
and that goes to the Boston Red Sox believed it. When I went to the start line with my NW2 dog, I didn't believe we could do it because I knew we didn't have those skills. So right. Once we did develop those skills and we had them, the last time I walked to the line, I knew I had those skills and we did do it. So that's a really important piece, right? You want to make sure you have the skills. You and your dog have the skills to do what you're going up there to do. Otherwise, it is easy to get very, very stressed because subconsciously that you don't have, right. You don't have those skills that you can pull out and work and fix and do when you're out there. So
the Boston Red Sox could not have won just having a mental attitude. They had to show up to practice and get the right nutrition and the sleep and all the pieces in order to do it, right? We can't just sit on the couch and say, we're going to be XYZ. We got to actually do the work to support that, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Right.
Yep. And Rachel, she has confidence in you, Jeannie. You are going to get it next time. All right. So, I think you talked about this a bit, but, would you be successful using visualization, if I can even say it,
yes.
Closing your eyes and kind of walking through it?
Yep, absolutely. So like with nosework and agility, this is very, very useful in agility. A lot of people used it in agility when we were using mental management back then, because you could walk your course. The course is the same, and you could visualize you and your dog running that course before we walked up to the line. In nosework, as I said, you can still do it because you get a look at your search area, so you can do some visualization as you go through your walkthrough, you and your dog, doing the search, right? So yes, it would be very, very helpful if you can visualize and use visualization. And these days, in nosework, you can videotape the search areas, so that might help you be able to visualize your searches. Since you can see it again, right?
Right, and this is all going to be really helpful because this coming weekend there is an AKC trial locally that a lot of people are in. So a lot of people will be having mental management flashbacks from tonight. For sure.
Definitely, and those are great venues work that, to try and remember, your pre-trial ritual it's got to be suited for you, what works for you. Like I said, I use um, collar change, which is a physical cue. Take a deep breath. I have a positive thought, and then because if you're putting in a positive thought, no bad ones can go in there, right? Because your conscious mind can only handle one thought at a time, right? So
even if they're just flashing before your eyes,
montage. Make things all positive. We can do this. We have a great dog, and because we all, we do, and we have a good time. Because really, after all, that's what it is. And things change as dog's getting older. My shepherd now is 10 and a half years old. I'm hoping she'll be with me for many more years. But the truth is, every minute is fleeting, so I'm not going to spend it worried about, and my puppies are going to be 2 next year already. It's not for a while, but it's like time has gone so quickly. So it's like you want to cherish every moment and enjoy your time with your dog, because you want to remember the moments you have, and also watching your dog and enjoying them. Just being in the moment is another big part of mental management, is being in the moment, being in that search, being in that, don't worry about everything else, just being in the search with your dog.
And that's what's nice about working with our dogs. They don't know, what the criteria is unless we react in some way. They don't understand, the numbers on the rally signs or any of those things.
Because we're just doing that thing we do. Okay.
I
have no idea.
Sometimes you get a little squirrely. Sometimes you're awesome. I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes you're a big weirdo. Sometimes you're okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know. It's a good thing they can't do Facebook Live, because it'd be embarrassing.
We're interviewing them next week now.
No.
We're going to start with Cha-Cha.
No. You'll hurt my feelings.
We'll have to rate it based on her language.
Yeah. You'll hurt my feelings, I tell you. You should see what she does. But
oh, goodness.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to open up for any additional questions, because we're getting close to the top of the hour. And is there anything, Nancy, that we haven't covered that you wanted to make sure you shared tonight about mental management?
Well, one of the things I just want you to remember is to be in the moment with your dogs, because these dog sports are for us to have a good time, right? We have a good time with our dogs. We spend the time, and yes, we want to do well, absolutely, but prepare you and your dog, and most of us are. We go to classes and do what we need to do, and trust that your dog has the skills to do it, and when you do not have a good, that's gonna be my challenge to everybody, is like, when you do, think about it, think how you correct it, how you would make it better, and then stop thinking about it. Be done with it, and do what you need to do to correct it, and then be done with it. Don't bring all those past learning experiences with you, right? You should have addressed them as you go along, and enjoy that as being part of the journey of whatever dog sport you do. And for mental management, it's like your self-image is going to they're always in communication, and your self-image is, doesn't lie. It's like, do you think you deserve to win or not? So, kind of think about that. That's kind of heavy, but
it is. But that's that inner work that we need anyways. But it's kind of fun to do it if you're doing it for your dog and for an activity you enjoy doing together.
Right. And don't forget, your self-image. In your self-image, your performance and your self-image are always equal, right? And that is kind of a thing.
Woo, man, you are going deep.
Yeah. So it's like your performance and your self-image are always equal. So always think about that. So yeah, dogs do make us better people, I gotta say, and this is one way they do.
Absolutely.
So those are things, and a lot of times when we work on when we do a alive mental management, we're able to apply more, and then there's a lot more to it than the little bit we've covered today. But it's again, the dogs make us better people. So this is one way they're doing it, by making us better about that.
Making us aware of things we might need to work on.
Exactly right.
All right, guys, last chance for any questions. While you guys are posting questions, I did want to let you know that not only is Nancy coming to us in person in March, it'll be March 2nd and 3rd. On the 2nd, she's talking about mental management specifically. And there are still working spaces. You can find that on our website, k9countryacademy.com. But we also have another Facebook Live lined up. Nancy and I, we have chatted about this. We think you guys love it, and hopefully you do. If not, just let us know. But we're going to do another one December 9th. We think Sunday evening seems to be a good time. And I believe for this one, we're going to talk about competition. Am I correct, Nancy? I didn't have it on my list. Okay. So that competition prep, exactly. Because, man, there are a ton of competitions coming, and we want to be prepared. And Nancy's a great resource for that. So stay tuned for December 9th, and we'll remind you so that you can be here. All right. So we just have some thanks for you. Thank you so much for being on this live. Free information from Nancy Reyes. I mean, guys, this you would pay good money for. So we're so thankful that you're willing to spend an hour with us on a Sunday evening. We know your time is precious. And guys, continue the conversation. I will also share this on our YouTube channel, and I know Nancy will share it with all her folks on all her media as well. But you can continue the conversation by posting questions, and one of us will answer. If you have any other topics, whether that's with our wonderful Nancy Reyes or anyone else you're interested in, I'd be happy to host another broadcast. Nancy, anything else you want to share before we say goodnight?
Nope. Thank you all very much. I really had a great time. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Always. All right, guys. Well, thanks again. Hope you have a fantastic week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.